Blazers pre-draft workouts, they are continuing.
Ramping up.
You've got the star-studded 6-man workout that is coming to town this week.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, according to Jonathan Wasserman.
I'll say it's tomorrow.
It is tomorrow. And it's got
and
some...
it is going to be closed. I can confirm that the workout is going to be closed. Womp, 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 womp.
How many agents are behind the wanting these closed?
One
like
big,
agent, or I guess it's
agencies.
not agents, agencies.
One big player.
Okay.
One big player is really they have more clients than anyone in this draft.
And they're the ones
they're kind of dictating how things are going.
Closing the doors on it. All right. Well,
I get it.
Sucks.
I get it. I think it's dumb, but I get it.
Well, you released Mock Draft 2.0 a month after your first one. Do you want to give us kind of your rundown of what you had initially? Like, just do top 5 on your first one.
On the first one?
And then give us who you had for the Blazers at 7 and 14.
Yeah, my original mock, no surprise, had Alex Sarr 1, Zach Rieseshay 2. Like, that's the 1-2 that for me, even now, I only changed that just because of there's some other guys that I've heard moving around. It's this time of season, it's smokescreen season. And I made some pretty drastic changes based on intel, intuition, and discussions. And I'm going to do one more mock before the draft. I'm probably going to end up going, I probably adjusted too much on a couple guys. But I wanted to kind of give an idea of how things shaped out. So this was a month ago. Sarr, Rieseshay, Shepard, Dillingham, Buzelis.
Okay. Modest Buzelis.
That was my top 5. And that was...
Okay. Rob, don't call him Kenny Dillingham.
There you go. Sarr
Reed
to the
Shepard.
Hawks, Rieseshay to the Wizards, Reed Shepard to the Rockets, Rob Dillingham to the Spurs, and Modest Buzelis to the Pistons.
Okay. Who did we have at 7 going to Portland and 14?
For the Blazers, I had 7, Cody Williams, at 14, Tijon Saloon.
All right. Here we are a month later. A lot has changed in the conversation around prospects, and we've started to see what some teams are doing. Little teams showing their hands. And I think one that, or 2 teams that are absolute wild cards as it pertains to what the Blazers will do. The Atlanta Hawks, I do believe there is that conversation that they don't know what to do at 1, and they don't know. That doesn't really pertain to the Portland Trail Blazers because they're not going to be...
It's going to be Sarr,
not selecting somebody that's not going to be there for Portland, right? I think the 2 teams that you could see that trickle-down effect outside of Charlotte, which is directly in front of them, are the Pistons at 5.
Yep.
And I think the Rockets at 3, too.
To an extent, yes. I think that they're pretty much locked in on Reed Shepard if they're going to make the pick. I would be shocked if they didn't go with the Reed, just because even though Klingen's probably rated as the number 3 overall prospect, like there's no way you can fit Şengün and Klingen on the floor together.
Yeah.
And they're so dedicated to Şengün. Like he's their best player right now. And he's baby Jokic in a sense. And look, could they decide like, hey, the defense just isn't there, and I don't know if we can have him as an anchor, and you'd have to have a very specific center around him to make this work. Like you almost need like a Chet Holmgren to make it work.
Yeah.
So, and that scarcity, that rarity, maybe they move off of him for a star. Like they're not just giving him up. Like it's like go get a star.
And
like,
I think that is where it is like, all right, we've heard that smoke over this offseason.
You've heard them linked to Kevin Durant in the past. Jimmy Butler's a guy I've heard linked to there, but it wouldn't be for Şengün. It would probably be for Jalen Green. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that I think they can do. For me in this draft, despite all of the smoke and discussion, I still have Sarr 1. It's just so hard for me to believe that the Hawks would pass on Sarr. To me, he is clear and above the best player in this draft.
A 7-footer that can run like a gazelle.
He is an elite mover.
Has a body that is ready to play.
And I don't care if he doesn't contribute on the offensive end at all. I don't. Like whatever you get from him as a rim runner, as a spacer, as a connector, just like that's bonus, because defensively I genuinely believe he has the propensity and the capacity to be a defensive player of the year candidate. He won't because Victor Wembanyama exists.
Dude, there were now it wasn't the NBL, it was in Australia, right? But there's video of him picking guys, point guards up
at the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And not like kind of staying with them, cutting them off and taking away driving lanes. It's
crazy.
I know I'm prone to hyperbole and having fun with stuff. I'm not joking. I've never seen someone at this size move this well or this fluidly. Ever. What he does and how he moves is terrifyingly good.
All right, so you got Sarr at 1. Again, that is unchanged.
Yep.
You had Sarr at 1 to Atlanta in your first one. You had Zach Rizachet going number 2
This is the big
to
change
the
for
Washington Wizards in your last draft.
I take Klingon at 2.
Ooh.
And that to me is, I think, something, because we're talking about Klingon's this great prospect, like, and he's number 3 overall on the board and all this. And I sit there and I go, what do the Wizards not have? Who did they just trade? Daniel Gafford?
Daniel Gafford.
Do they have a starting center?
No. They don't have much of anything.
And so if you can get a bedrock foundational big, and that you like, everybody's talking about how great he is, why would they pass on him?
And a guy who is gritty on the defensive end.
Yeah, and so I don't think they'll go this way entirely. But I think this is a path that's worth exploring. That's kind of what I did with this mock, was like, okay, what would happen if? Because I could sit there and look at all the other mocks, and I can listen to all the intel, and I can have all the conversations, and I can end up in the same general spot as everybody else.
Yep.
Or I can go, well, what happens if I do this? And the chain reaction to that is it pushes Rizachet down. What do the Rockets have a litany of? Is it like 6'7" to 6'9" guys that are wingy and do stuff? Yeah. So do they perhaps trade out of 3 and a team moves up there to take Rizachet, or does Rizachet fall to his French teammate and Victor Wembanyama and go forward to the Spurs? And now you start getting spicy. And I've talked about this for a couple weeks now. The Pistons hired Trajan Langdon. He is not attached to Jaden Ivey. He's not attached to Cade Cunningham. He's not attached to Jalen Duren. But if he wants to make like some of these guys work because they aren't his guys, instead of going and drafting another toolsy guy, which they have a ton of up and down their roster, why not go get a guy like Dalton Connect and give yourself some semblance of a balance with your team? Make things easier for your guys so that you because you don't have Bogdanovich anymore. You got Simone Fontecchio, who like did make things easier for you because he was a competent, like higher level shooter with a high IQ. You put Dalton Connect on the floor with Cade Cunningham, all of a sudden it's a little more room for him to operate. And you can maybe make some calls that you want to make on guys. Is Jaden Ivey a guy that you want to pursue? Is Jalen Duren the big that you want to run with? Is Cade the guy you want to hand a 5-year, $225 million deal to?
Mm-hmm.
And I think having, like, I know I've pushed back against this for the Blazers, and there's a reason for that. The Blazers don't have a litany of toolsy guys. They're still trying to add those guys to where that makes sense, and they have their veterans still. So, and if that ends up happening, now you're looking at a spot where the Blazers have quite a bit of guys to choose from at 7. You've got Tijon Saloon. You've got Modest Buzelis. You've got Cody Williams. You've got, if you want him, Ron Holland. I'll just say this. As it pertains to the G League Ignite guys, Modest a little bit, but Ron specifically, there's been a lot of stuff out there that indicates that Ron might actually fall out of the lottery. I don't know if I truly buy it, but I that was the path that I went on because it was less about him falling and more about some other guys I've heard rising. Dalton Connect is a guy I've heard rising. Tijon Saloon is a guy that has been rising rapidly over the last month. I ultimately took Tijon Saloon at 7.
That's what I want. That's what I want. Tijon Saloon at 7. That seems like a guy that when you have a bunch of holes, he is like...
We got his measurements, by the way. He is 6'10", 220 with a 7'2" wingspan.
And he is plus on the defensive end of the floor.
Mm-hmm. And he's 18. He will be 19 in August. He's one of the younger prospects in the class.
Fits the timeline of what the Blazers are kind of working for. And when you're at 7 in this draft, you're not looking for the home run. You're looking for connect on a double.
I think you're taking a real risk drafting him.
That's okay though, because I like a little boomer bust when in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Because what if the Blazers if it doesn't work out and he is not very good as a rookie? By the way, going to be okay.
If they take him or Cody Williams, I will be on record of this now. They won't be good as rookies.
No,
they need time. They need seasoning, which is totally fine because this team is not going to be good this year.
2025 draft.
We're shooting for 2025, 2026 season. That's what we're shooting for.
So Saloon at 7.
Yeah, and then for everybody I'm a big Cody Williams guy. This is a tough call for me to go with Saloon over Williams or Williams over Saloon. This was basically like a coin toss. I don't think Williams will make it past Utah at 10. From what I've heard, they love Cody.
Okay, well, now we need to start, talking trash about him online too. Knock him down to 14.
Knock him down a peg or two.
Let's see if we can get I don't think that's going to work, but we could give it a whirl. Mm-hmm. We could give it a whirl.
I've heard the Bulls are trying to find a way to move up they're a team I've heard linked to Donovan Clingan, and if they can't get up that high enough to get him, that they would like to get up high enough to draft Buzelis, which I think 9, where Memphis is where you could get Buzelis. Because if he falls past 5 to Detroit, I don't think Portland would take him. There's a chance. There's a chance Portland could take him. But if he doesn't get taken there, I don't think the Spurs look at him. Memphis, I don't think, looks at him. And so you're trying to get in that range before somebody else tries to nab him. But I had Buzelis falling to 11. Devin Carter is another guy that's flying up boards. I've heard he might go as high as 8 to the Spurs. I have him going to OKC, but
Big East Player of the Year.
He's just a dude. For 14, with who was available through this mock and through this process, I gave the Blazers Kel'el Ware.
All right, the former Oregon Duck who transferred to Indiana this past year, you're looking at a backup center in that position.
And you're rolling the dice on him because
traditional big that is very athletic.
Yes.
But at the same time, he was a 5-star recruit. It didn't
high end talent.
It didn't work out at Oregon. He was much better when he went to Indiana this past year. And now we're looking at, all right, he is another project. He's a 2 and done.
Yeah.
In college basketball, but a guy that has a very high ceiling, and
he's a legit 7-footer with great touch and has shown the capacity to maybe step out and knock some down some shots.
That could be a guy though that you take him at 14 in a draft like this. There's going to be somebody behind him, and that is going to be probably better.
Yeah, and
and then we're going to have to do the Bam Adebayo thing all over again.
Yeah, the thing about him is though, is you look at him and there was obviously some negative marks coming out of Oregon. From what I've heard, he's done a really good job in interviews of not downplaying but answering those questions and just kind of discussing why things went the way they did and why his motor didn't run hot or the questions around that. And he's been very adamant that in workouts that he's showing that he can get it done. That just plan through the workouts as hard as he can. That's all he can do is go, hey, look, this is who I am kind of situation. So I think there's a couple different options there. If the Blazers wanted to, again, if they wanted to double down the wings, they could go with a guy like Keyshawn George. If Holland does fall, which I think is a very real possibility that he could be available at 14. If the Blazers took Holland at 14, that's a much easier pill for me to swallow.
Okay. It moves that we are expecting this Blazers franchise to have this offseason is Malcolm Brogdon being dealt out.
Yes.
Another move is likely in that backcourt one way or another. We don't know
whether it's Anthony or not.
We're not sure what they're going to do, but alleviate that logjam a little bit. If the Blazers do go a big, whether it is, nobody believes it now that Donovan Clingan will drop to 7, or if it's Kel'el Ware at 14, okay? If they go big, what does that mean for the front court moving forward? Because DeAndre Ayton is there. Forget Robert Williams is still a Portland Trailblazer.
And Duop Reith.
Do we expect movement in that front court then?
Well, I think if you draft anywhere but the wing spot, you're gonna get movement.
Faux show.
So
okay.